Hello friends, welcome to this new channel. Here I am Apoorva Mishra. I had 654 rank in Civil Services 2014 and I will be analyzing the newspaper editorial columns of today. So let's start with Indian Express. On page 14, the first column that you can see. Now this is written by a former Indian Navy chief. It is relevant for GS paper 2 international relations segment. So you can see that there is this point in your syllabus, effect of policies of developed countries on India's interests. This article is about policies of China and Chinese naval expansion. So China has got now new aircraft carriers, and also in South China Sea the naval policy of China is getting aggressive day by day. The One Belt, One Road initiative and especially the Maritime Silk Road policy is also very critical to India. And we have also seen that recently Indian towns have been renamed by China in Tawang. So all this, has created a strategic threat to India, and hence this article is very important for you. So go through it carefully. Now, in the second article, the editorial, it is about the cow vigilantism that is not useful for you because there is no way it can be asked in your UPSC paper. The third article, which you can see here, this editorial is about some of the electoral reforms which have been proposed by Election Commission recently. So it is relevant for you in GS paper 2. The salient features of RPA is a part of your syllabus, and there is a proposal to amend the RPA by Election Commission which includes electoral disqualification and for all those candidates against whom charges have been framed. Also, in recent times, we have seen that money power use has been increasing. Voters have been bribed, especially in elections in Tamil Nadu. We saw that Election Commission countermanded two elections. So, considering all this, this article is also very important for you. Now, this is the third article. This is related to the presidential election in France, where Marine Le Pen's performance has been a point of talk a lot recently. But this article is also not useful for you because it is not directly related to India's international relations. And see, many people would tell or think that this is important, but keep in mind that only 4 to 5 questions related to international relations would be asked in your mains exam. So it is no way related. It could in no way be asked. There are many more important things which would be asked. So according to me, this article is not important for you. Finally, there is this article which is a critique of a previous article of Justice A.P. Shah in Indian Express. And according to me, this article is also not important, even though it is written by a former judge of Delhi High Court. But I have read the article, and the arguments are very, out of the point, and it's you can simply leave this article because it won't add any value to you. So this was the page 14. Now the next page, here the first article. Now this is a very ideological article. It talks about relations between political ideologies and constitution and values and all this, and especially about the ideologies of Ambedkar and Gandhi and how they are relevant to Indian society and Indian politics. Now you can avoid this article because all this is not directly related to your GS syllabus. I mean, no direct question could come out of it, but it can be slightly useful for your essay. All the concepts which are mentioned in this article, they can be useful for you can use them in your essay somehow. But again, the article is very subjective and highly opinionated, so I don't think you can derive much value out of this particular article. So just give it a quick read if you have time, or you can also avoid this article if you are a bit rushed today. Now, again, this is an important article. I think it is written by C. Rajmohan. His columns are always very good and generally very useful. So, this is again related to GS paper 2 international relations. Now, there is a point in your syllabus, India and its neighborhood relations. So, this article is useful because this talks about India's relations with Sri Lanka. So the new possibilities which are emerging in India-Sri Lanka relations, especially considering some of the media reports that Trikonamali will be developed as a hydrocarbon hub by the Sri Lankan government. Uh, and one thing which is very useful in columns of C. Raj Mohan is that he talks about real politic instead of ideology. And Indian government recently has also been following that, as compared to previous governments which followed international relations based through an ideological lens. So these columns become important for you now. And this particular article also talks about how Beijing is using its huge capital reserves and the forex reserves it has now to influence geopolitics of the world, and with consideration to India, especially for the neighbors of India. So he talks about how India's natural advantages, especially geographical and cultural relationships with these countries, could be utilized by India to counter the economic might of China. So please go through this article carefully and make good notes of it. Now, finally, this article in this page, I think again it is not useful because it is again talking about politics and Hindutva and all. It is not useful with reference to the paper and the questions that could be asked in your UPSC paper. Now, let's go to the Hindu, the page 8, the first editorial page. The first article, again, it talks about cow vigilantism and everything. So, I think this article is also not useful for you. The second article is, I think, is very important because it is relevant according to your syllabus in GS paper 3 in Indian economy. There is this point, the very first point, issues related to planning. So 5-year plans, as you know, have been scrapped by the Niti Aayog and Indian government, and the new planning framework is being, devised by the Niti Aayog right now. So this article talks about it, and hence it is very important. Now, this editorial again, it is about French elections, French presidential elections. As I said in previous Indian Express as well, that this is not useful for you. You can just one or two things which you will get to know otherwise as well, that who gets elected and which party the candidate belongs to. Only that, and that is also important, perhaps for prelims and not at all for mains. Now, this article is about climate change and the Paris climate deal. It is very important, I think, because it is important for GS paper 2, international relations. Again, the policies of developed countries on India's interests. So, this article talks about recent policies of Donald Trump, where he eliminated CPP, and which was in a way a retreat from the INDCs which were committed by US in the Paris climate deal. And it is also this article is also relevant for GS paper 3 because there is this ecology part in your GS paper 3 where there is mentioned environmental degradation as another point. So this article is important for you. So this was the first editorial page. Now the op-ed page of the Hindu. Again, this is an article on French presidential elections, not important. Then there is a political article, Appeasement of None. This is written by a BJP person, not useful. Then there is this article about journalists on screen. Again, this is not useful for you. Then there is this article. It is about a concept of economics, which is the Laffer curve, which is about the relationship of taxation, tax rates, and the tax revenue which the government gets. So it is useful for prelims. Sometimes conceptual questions regarding macroeconomics are asked in your prelims paper. So this particular article can be useful. In fact, I would say that you should keep a cutting of it, and you could use it to revise just before your exam. Then there is this article about worms versus plastics. It is a very specific article, although someone would think that it is related to your ecology part, but I would say it is not useful. Then there is this small data point, about late marriages which are happening in India and the data of different states. So you could use this data in some of your questions in your mains exam related to Indian society, or it could also be used in your essay paper. these data points. So I would say that if you could, just keep a cutting of it, just paste it in on your wall, you keep looking at this data. If you remember even some of this data on your exam day, then you can use it. And if you could mention some data in your answers, then your answer becomes very good. So that is all for today. Thank you for watching this video. If you like this video, please subscribe this channel. I'll keep posting such current affairs, especially editorial analysis of the newspapers every day. Thank you very much.